United stands, we're live from the studio and we're reacting to Rúben Amorim's Europa League press conference. And all I'm going to say is, wow, that's probably the best press conference he's done in a while. Even Beth got a question. But big statements from Rúben Amorim. We'll go through it, but basically he's answered the question on what the circumstances would be to walk away. He answered the question on whether he'd rather be in the Champions League or have the trophy. And he also answered the question as to whether we'd be better off not being in the Champions League and him having time on the training ground. Three big answers. Also quite a lot about injuries as well. It ain't looking good on the injuries from Amorim. Let's get straight into that. Dalot, De Ligt, Yoro, not going to go to Chelsea. They're all trying to get back. They might take risks, but in my opinion, if they can't play against Chelsea, how can you expect them to start those games? And if they're not starting, they're not really going to be that useful, because three defenders, why would you bring them on for the last 20 minutes? So it's not looking good in relation to that. I have a feeling Dalot might play, but beyond that, I'm not so sure. But look, I want to get into these points here. Really, really interesting. So Rúben Amorim has been asked whether he values the trophy or the Champions League. The big question of our age, because I've been talking about this on That's Football. Is it more important to win an FA Cup or get fourth place? And I think in the modern game, we are the victims of the modern game. The Champions League and fourth place is more important than the FA Cup. The money, the status, the growth you can have as a football club. Well, Rúben Amorim obviously agrees. He's asked the question, is the trophy or being in the Champions League more important? And he said this: the Champions League for what we need in this club and what it will bring financially and help our growth over the next few years. And I completely agree with that. And there is an element of sadness to that, but the reason for it is pure desperation. I don't want, as a Manchester United fan, to be talking about not having silverware to get in the Champions League. We will get silverware, but I also agree with Amorim, but winning the trophy will be great and it will symbolise the relief, celebration and hope. But really, the Champions League is more valuable than that piece of silverware, because it puts us into the Champions League. It gives us financial stability, it gives us financial hope, and it gives us an opportunity that if we haven't got this, we're in big, big trouble. He was also asked the question, would it be better for Manchester United to not win that trophy and be in a situation where we're only in the Premier League, you get all week to train? And he said, look, honestly, I need more time. I need more time on the training ground. So the journalist said, does that mean that you're saying that it might be better off not being in the Champions League? And he said, absolutely not. As much as I need time, I really want you to understand, and I wrote it down here, it's going to be really, really tough without the Europa League. So that's from the manager. If we don't win this game, then we're in big trouble, basically. So yes, he needs more time with the team, and yes, not being in Europe would give him more time with the team, less interviews as well. But he basically said, no, you can give me more time with this team, but I won't get the transfers, I won't get the money. So I'll be working with what I've got with more time, when I'd rather be working with less time with the players I need. So that is a big message, because I've seen some of you, to be fair, have asked that question, and I thought it was a good question. Some of you have said it over the last few months, so credit to you. We've discussed this. Would Man United be better off, in a way, not being in the Champions League and having time on the training ground? And some of you have certainly said it. You know you have. There's people doing hearts in the chat because you know you have. But the honest answer comes from the manager. The honest answer will come from the manager on Garnacho, Mainu, Rasmus, all these players, whether they'll be here or not. It should be his decision, not ours. We will have our opinions. But to anybody out there who is thinking, you know what, if we're not in the Europa League, if we're not in the Champions League, there might be a silver lining if Spurs are holding that trophy up and, you know, we might have more time. Amorim categorically saying, no, we're in big trouble if we don't win this trophy. Now, he didn't elaborate on what that big trouble is, but I think we're all grown-ups in this chat, and anybody who's not watching it live, I think it means that if we don't win the Europa League and we don't get Champions League football, we will be massively hindered financially. Maybe we won't be able to attract players. Maybe we won't be able to sell players. Everyone will know we're desperate as well. When you're talking about selling players, everyone knows you're desperate, so you can be taken advantage of. But seriously, we've got a manager who in the last few minutes has basically said being in the Champions League is more important than the trophy, And not being in the Champions League is going to make his job hard, and it will be very, very, very difficult. He said, you, the journalists, the fans, are going to have to be ridiculously patient if we're not in the Europa League. And I think that's a polite way of saying he's probably going to lose his job, because we won't get patience from the journalists, and I don't think we'll get patience from the fan base. So, look, I did question why Man United were doing Rúben Amorim's press conference a week before the game, but bloody hell, it's probably his best one he's given in a long time, because he's given us two absolute honest pearlers there. And look, I'm sure there will be critics out there. We'll get some of your comments in a minute. I'm sure there will be some critics out there about how can a manager say being in the Champions League is more important than a trophy? But there is context to that. Of course there is context to that, because the context is you would want to be in a position where you would say, we're in the Champions League every year. Winning the Europa League is, it's the old UEFA Cup. We haven't won this in nearly 10 years. It's an important trophy. I think the severity of the situation and the context is key. Manchester United's situation is so precarious that we need Champions League football and we need the finance it brings. If you were Arsenal and you're in the Champions League every year, and you're in the Europa League, obviously you wouldn't have been in it last year to be in the Europa League, but you know what I mean? You're in it because you've already got it because you've a league position. Then the Europa League becomes, winning a trophy becomes massive. But it's a sad state of affairs as to what we're in. He was also asked about the question, what did he mean after the West Ham game when he sort of hinted about walking away from the club? I never took it that he was walking away from the club. I took it that he'd be sacked. And effectively, that's what he said. He said, what I meant was when I said that if these results continue next season after West Ham, then we won't be here. He says, I'm not talking about me walking away. I'm talking about the standards of the football club, and that if these results continued next year, they'd basically get rid of us. They'd change it. But he said, look, I'll say it again now. I don't regret saying what I said after the West Ham game, that these results are unacceptable, because I know what needs to be done. He said, I can see and take responsibility for what needs to be done. I know the issues and I'm very far from quitting. What I'm saying is, if this continues next season, then I won't be here because they'll change me. So I like that. I mean, obviously, I think sometimes people, can twist and turn and not understand what's being said if you don't get the clarity. But I like the clarity, because what he's essentially saying is that he knows the issues. He's not going to quit. He knows what needs to be done. And he's basically saying it's not going to happen next season. What I am saying is it's unacceptable this season. It's disgusting what's happened. We're losing all these games. It can't happen next season. But I don't think it is going to happen next season, and I'm not going to quit, because I know what the issues are and I'm going to solve those issues. And that's the challenge. So I don't think there's really, I think, what I think it is? I just don't think I don't think we're that used to that level of honesty, that level of clarity from a manager who has only been here 6 months, putting that amount of pressure on himself. I welcome it. I really, really do. Losing to Spurs is treason, says Ian. The system needs to change, says No Name. Great to see so many crap comments in the chat. Where's the real ones? Because the system doesn't need to change. Kulusevski's undergoing surgery, so can't be available for the finals. Is that true? Can I get some... Oh, it is true. So Kulusevski is out. We shouldn't be... I'm getting this live. I sense a little clip coming here as I'm desperately trying not to jump around and put a smile on my face, because that would be wrong. But we're missing De Ligt, Delo, Yoro, Xerxes. I'll take anything at the moment. But look, I don't wish injury on any player. It's such a shame, actually. Can I just say my reaction is this? It is such a shame that Kulusevski has had surgery and might miss the final. And I'm sure we wish him all the best and hope he's back fit and raring to go for the start of next season. But you would think if he's had surgery, he's out then, wouldn't you? Because I had heard that it was a minor knock. So, look, I don't know whether Maddison's going to be back. I don't know whether Maddison's out for the season. I know Bergval's out. I think Maddison might be out. I think Kulusevski's really dangerous for Spurs. I think he's a really dangerous player for them. If it's knee surgery, you're not going to play in a week, are you? Maddison's out for 3 months as well, says Kai. Look, you know what? In some ways, I think there's a bit of a battle going on, isn't there? We should all be praising Gary Neville, actually. We should be praising Gary Neville for jinxing the Spurs side by saying only Bruno Fernandes would get in it. Well, that's Garnacho or Ahmad in it. But look, we've got to be very careful, though. We don't want to be favourites in this final. And the more players Spurs lose, the more we'll become favourites. So, yeah, looks like Kulusevski is out of the final as well, which could be a big one. There's no news about Heaven's injury updates, says Eden. I think with Heaven and Collier, were they not back? No, it wasn't Heaven, was it? Collier and Evans were back training today. Heaven, I think, is still out as well. So there we go. I liked this from Amorim. Keep those things coming in. I liked this from Amorim. He was asked his very last question, actually. We've got a few more questions to go through, but I'm sort of going in order of the questions I liked. So the very last question he got asked was that he played in a final himself. What experience from that final can he give to the players? And he said, if you lose, you may as well have not been there. You have to win. Otherwise, you weren't there. Win or else. And I think that is so true. It is so true. It reminds me of what Sir Alex Ferguson said to the players, I think it was at half-time in the 99 final in the Nou Camp. He said, when you walk past that trophy, it might have been before the game, actually. When you walk past that trophy that they have there, just imagine walking past that trophy at full time and you're not lifting it. And it's not the same as what Amorim said, but it is true. There's no point being in the final if you don't win it. No one talks about you, really. You know, you don't. You win it, or you may as well have not been there. And I think that rings true. We've spoken about this as a community. I mean, some of you, again, have said it, and it's absolutely true. That Lyon game, it's hard to top that Lyon game when you think about it. The stuff we were saying, stuff I was saying at 4-2 down with, 8 minutes to go. And then a few minutes later, you're winning the game after 3 goals in no time. Beating the favourites, Bilbao, massively over 2 legs. But none of that will mean anything. I don't think we'll look back on that with fondness next season or the season after if we lose to Spurs. It becomes redundant. It becomes irrelevant. So Amorim's absolutely spot on. Win or else. And if you lose, you may as well have not been there. So it's a big message, and I would hope that the experience of United sort of kicks in with that, because we have got players who've experienced winning, Casemiro, obviously Bruno, etc., and others, Mainu. Even some of the younger players have won an FA Cup, but we've also, I think, got a sprinkling of players that have lost the Europa League final. Harry Maguire, certainly. Luke Shaw would have been there as well. Bruno would have been there in that final as well, wouldn't he? Because it was under Ollie. So there's a few players that have lost the Europa League final as well. I mean, Spurs, they've got no experience of winning. The only cup they've got experience of is a cup of tea. So look, it could go in our favour, but I don't want to be favourites. Amorim was also asked about this. I mean, look, politically, in the world of Manchester United, politically, I'm interested in the Europa League story, the Champions League story, and that's why we've covered that first. But this in itself is a political Manchester United story that I think embarrasses the club to its very core. So we know last night we were talking about Rúben Amorim and he's bought these tickets for the fans that the club won't pay for. So he's asked this question, and this was his answer to it. He said, look, there's lots of people leaving the club. And it's really hard to, be giving out tickets when you're taking jobs away. And this is the message that we've sort of had from the club, that they're sacking people to help the club survive. And then if you're sacking people and taking away their jobs, but then you're gifting out tickets to the finals that those remain, it's not really a great message. The club's in a difficult position to be taking and giving. If you just turned in for that sentence, it sounds really wrong, but you know what I mean if you were listening. So basically what Amorim is saying is, look, the club are sacking people. There's talk of more sackings to come. And then you're giving those that remain tickets to go to the Europa League. It's a difficult thing. Well, the club have basically said it feels difficult to be doing that. So basically, Amorim has said that his reaction to it, Matt, There's someone at the door. There's somebody at the door. No one will have remembered to watch AMU. So I think with regards to where we're at with that is that Rúben Amorim has basically said, when I heard that message, my reaction was to basically, what did he say? So my reaction was to help the staff. When he heard the message from the club that they're not going to buy these people tickets and that there isn't, they can't be giving when they're taking away, etc., which is a load of nonsense. Let's be honest, it's a load of nonsense. His reaction was he wanted to help the staff, and he obviously bought tickets for them. And he said, to be fair, when I mentioned it to the players, all the players felt the same as well. So basically what you've got is a Robin Hood scenario, haven't you? Where, the Sheriff of Nottingham, Sir Jim Radcliffe and all that lot, they've basically taken away the tickets. And then Robin Hood or Reuben Hood has... I'm here all week. Reuben Hood. Reuben, come on. That's a head... Look. Manchester Evening News, The Athletic, I've just given you the headline of the morning, Reuben Hood. So basically, he's robbing from the rich to feed the poor, Reuben Hood. I may as well just retire. I may as well just retire on that one. I don't think there'll be a better line in sports history. Give me the award. Get me an award. So yeah, basically, he's Reuben Hood. He's robbing from Radcliffe. To feed the poor, and that's what he's done. It embarrasses the club. It really embarrasses the club. If I'm Sir Jim Radcliffe or I'm Joel Glazer or I'm Omar Barada, I look a complete and utter, well, there's words, isn't there? I look really, really bad. But he's just basically said, look, when I found out this, my reaction was I'll get them the tickets, and the players felt the same. So yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He was asked about the spirit of the team. Is it still there? And he said, look, it's been a really tough season. Changes in staff. We felt that throughout this season. It's been a tough environment for everybody. But in relation to spirit, in the Europa League, it's always been there. Maybe that, and he sort of elaborated on that. With the Europa League, it's always been there because maybe it's because there's something identifiable to play for. Maybe it's the jeopardy that's the only tournament that was going to rescue the season. So the spirit is there. There was something else he said that really caught my eye. Basically he was asked about the Premier League, why it is in the Premier League the club is so bad, but in the Europa League it's so good. Does it worry you about the final? Because look how bad you were against West Ham. A week later, you're playing a massive game in the Europa League. It's against the Premier League opposition. Does it worry you that you might replicate a Premier League performance in your biggest game? Because in the Europa League, we've always been playing foreign teams, but we're playing a Premier League club in the Europa League. Do you think the Premier League form could move over? Which I thought was a good question, actually. And he said, no, the context is different. In the final, they will be there. We know that these players can step up. We've seen it before with Ten Hag in the FA Cup final. They were poor in the Premier League, but in the FA Cup against Man City, against the Premier League team, they did turn up. He said the context is different as well. In the Europa League, you're fighting for something. You're fighting for something in the Cup every game. We've seen that in Lyon. We've seen it against Bilbao. We've seen it against Sociedad. Whereas in the league, it's not okay to be losing, but the context is different. In the league, for a long time, these players know there's not really anything big to fight for. But in the Europa League, there's something really big to fight for. So, I think effectively, he's saying it's not acceptable, but there is context, and I suppose that's human behaviour as well. Tony Swinton says, this press conference shows why we have the right person in charge. Well, if you're tuning in later, or late, I would tune in for the first 5 minutes, because I actually think this is probably, and I've been very impressed with Rúben Amorim's press conferences this season. I think they're right up with Rangnick. I actually think he's probably just dropped his best one ever. As I say, those 3 questions about what's more important, the trophy or being in the Champions League. Would you rather have more time with the players or be in the Champions League? I'd like more time with the players, but we have to be in the Champions League, otherwise we're in big trouble. And are you thinking about walking away? I'm not thinking about walking away. I'm not thinking about quitting. I know what the problems are. I know what the issues are. What I'm saying is if we keep losing like this season, I'll be sacked. But I know what the issues are. So I don't think he thinks that's going to happen. Beth asked a good question. She said, basically what she said was like, it's been a really, really difficult season. You've only just come into the club in the last 6 months. How important is it to keep the connection with the fans because they've been through a really difficult time? And he said, look, winning this cup is, I'm aware that Jose Mourinho won this tournament and obviously he's a big, role model of mine. I haven't spoken to Jose, but it's not about winning the trophy to follow in the steps of Jose Mourinho. It's about winning the trophy for the fans who've been through a lot this season. And he said the connection with the fans is really important. They stick with us, they're turning up for games, they've been really supportive of me, and it's important to keep that connection with the fans because it's without it, what are we? So I thought, he's obviously somebody that's made a conscious decision to not toe the party line. Now, I don't know whether that's because he's highly intelligent or because he's done his research, which also suggests intelligence, but there are so many different answers he could give, and I think we've seen previous managers give as well. Like, for example, what's more important, the trophy or being in the Champions League? Well, nobody can dispute that a trophy is fantastic. And the added bonus of being in the Champions League will, of course, help the football club. The tickets thing. Look, at the end of the day, I'm sure the club would love to buy tickets for these people. But, it's been really difficult to figure out how to do that. So I stepped in and helped the club out. He doesn't answer the question the way maybe the club would want, because I think he's aware that that's not what the fans want. There's got to be a bad guy, and I think we all know who the bad guy is, or the bad people are. And I think we need that connection with Amorim because we don't have a connection with the ownership. We don't have a connection with the CEO. We don't have a connection with anybody. So we very rarely have a connection with the players. So I think that in this time of crisis and, let's be honest, probably our worst ever Premier League season, to have a manager that speaks to us, communicates with us, is really, really important. Connection with the fans we've done, final expenses, spirit there, ticket situation we've done. We've done about the injuries as well. So what's Mark doing here? Well, Beth has been at the press conference, literally just walked in the studio actually, and then walked out again. A proper non-abject question, you mean? Nothing we didn't know, should have asked something about a player instead, says Lee. Well, Lee's obviously a miserable shit. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe I'm in the minority, Lee, but I thought it was a fantastic interview. It's very rare that you get a manager saying in an interview before a cup final that the cup doesn't really matter as much as actually being in the Champions League, which is a byproduct of winning that tournament. I think it's also very rare that you get a manager that will admit that if we don't win that final, the club is up the shit creek without a paddle. I think they are very big. I mean, look, that's the big question for me. If you're not in Europe, could it be a positive having more time on the training ground? Now, I think that is an olive branch to lie and go, look, we want to win this tournament. We need to win this tournament. We're Manchester United. We should be winning tournaments. But if we're not in Europe next year, it's not the end of the world. We'll have more time on the training ground, this, that and the other. But he didn't say that. He said, no, if we don't win this tournament, we are in big trouble. And nobody, I've been saying it since Christmas. Many of you have been saying it as well. I think we're staring into oblivion. And if you don't know what oblivion is, it's the end of the football club as you know it. I genuinely think that could happen if we don't win this tournament. So for the manager to be saying that, I'm not shocked. I'm just grateful for the honesty because I still see people going, yeah, but you know what? If we don't win it, we can just train a lot on the week. We can have a whole week to train. But what people don't understand is, with the same players he's got now, we won't be able to make the changes that need to be changed. So, very interesting. Do you think Bilbao fans would want United to lose as payback, says Brooke? Couldn't give a toss. Think we need to get some positives around with new emojis. Yes, probably. We have got interviews with Delo and Mazraoui, which I think we're going to drop ASAP, actually. So we'll get those out for you as well. Beth was interviewing them. So make sure you've subscribed and smashed the like on the video as well. 8 o'clock, I've got Terry in the studio as well. We're going to do a bit of a show, not interviewing Terry, talking about Chelsea game as well, bit of a preview for that. So we'll see you then for then. But watch out, we've got those interviews coming out very soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Nice to be in the studio, not wearing my glasses as well, and still able to read. It could be a new me. But fantastic interview. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Smash a like on the video for Rúben Hood. Thanks for watching.